I was walking through the streets of the city late at night. I was bored and decided to take a walk, but everything was strange. The city was empty. There were no cars or people in the streets as usual. That's when I decided to take out my cell phone and call a friend to find out what was going on. When he answered the call, asked me, "Where are you?" Your parents were very worried. They thought something had happened to me. He sounded very worried too, and I asked him what was going on. "Don't you watch the news?" he asked. "The town is going through some scary things, and the mayor has decided to lock people up. 1 hour ago, they published in the social networks the pictures of a woman. She is dressed completely in black. Her face is almost completely covered, and she is aggressively pursuing everyone she meets. But she is not alone. There are other entities that roam the city looking for victims." "Entities, did you say?" I asked, and he answered me, "Yes. They performed a ritual in the city and many people participated. Some from the town and others from outside. Something went wrong and many ended up being possessed." I ended the call and ran home as fast as I could. You can't imagine how frightened I was. They said that thousands of people had disappeared and they didn't know what had happened to them. Everything is different now. The city is lonely and cold at night. It seems like something they will never forget. I used to live across the street from a cemetery, and as scary as that sounds, what happened in the neighborhood every night was even scarier. I had just gotten out of college and started working. What I was making wasn't enough to pay rent in the city, so I decided to look for something more affordable. It was temporary. Then I looked for something more comfortable for me and my family. Our neighbors were very strange. They didn't say hello, didn't talk, and didn't even turn to look at you. When night came, I was in my room with my wife and I noticed something very strange. I looked out the window and everyone was standing at the window staring at me. It wasn't a normal stare, it was kind of creepy and their smiles were kind of scary. They were coming out of their houses and into the cemetery. They would run around like it was a game and then they would start acting aggressive towards each other. I went to see the children and they were terrified by what they saw. We couldn't sleep that night because their laugh was so annoying. It was 12 o'clock and it looked like something from another world because what we saw was not human. The next day we moved away from there, tried to tell people about the place, but no one knew about it. I wanted to go back there once, but there was no cemetery or houses, just a forest. And sometimes I think I was with my family in the world of the dead for one night. I worked as a police officer for most of my life, and while it was a job I took pride in, sometimes I came across cases that defied explanation. It was late at night and I was patrolling a sparsely populated area of the city. My partner was sick and I had to go out alone that night. Everything was normal, it looked like any other, and I did not expect it to change. Then I saw a woman standing in front of her house asking me to stop. She looked a little desperate. I asked her about the situation, and she told me that there was someone in the house who wouldn't leave her alone. I found it strange that there was no light inside. Them decided to go in and make an inspection. Once inside, I inspected the whole place and there was no one there, just old things and a little dust everywhere. When I went back, the lady was gone. Decided to call her, looked for her outside the house and go back inside in case something had happened to her, but the woman wasn't there anymore. There were some pictures of her in the house and I noticed that when I saw the woman she looked younger than in the pictures. I was confused, decided to call for reinforcements to search the place, but I couldn't get in touch with the police station. Instead, the lady answered me. I heard her say, "Help me." She won't let me go, and it sounded like she was trapped in a small place. I asked her where she was, and she said, "Down here." I went down to the basement and looked, but no one was there. I heard a noise upstairs and went up to see what it was and found 2 of my colleagues. When they saw me, they got on the radio and said we found it. They asked me if I was okay, and I said yes. They told me that I had been missing for 3 days and that the whole police department was looking for me. But that made no sense to me because it had only been an hour. I told them about the lady who came to me for help and they looked worried, like I was crazy. I showed them her picture, the one on the wall. One of them told me, She was Mrs. Johnson. She died tragically a few months ago, and since then nobody lives in this place. I felt very scared at that moment and wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. I don't know what that entity wanted or what its intentions were, but since then, several policemen have heard the voice of a woman asking for help from that place. I've been working at the morgue for 2 days, and it's an easy job. Just receiving the bodies and entering the details like the name, eye colors, skin color into the system. The first day I worked the morning shift and I felt safe because there were more people doing different tasks. But my second day was Saturday night and I had to stay until the next day. It was the weekend and apparently there was a lot of activity on the streets. I received a girl. She was about 22 years old and I was very sorry to see her there. Her eyes were open and I could not get them close. I picked her up and took her to the morgue as I had done with the others. I decided to rest for a while and went outside to get some air, but I felt I had to go inside. When I came back, I heard noises coming from the storage room, so I went to check, but when I got there, she was gone. I thought someone had stolen it, but why? I checked the cameras and no one but me had gone in or out since my shift started. Suddenly, I heard footsteps of someone running down one of the hallways laughing. I went to check and there she was. She was smiling. It was a very creepy smile. But I felt the real terror when she asked me, "Do you want to play?" I ran for the exit and she followed me. I screamed for help, but no one was there. She chased me and said, "Come on, let's play." I hid under a stretcher and saw the door open and she started looking for me. I waited for her to be at the back of the room and ran out as fast as I could. The last thing I remember was running out into the hallway. Collapsed. When I woke up, I checked the tanks and there it was like nothing had happened. My other partner arrived. I didn't say anything, just gave her the keys and left. Nothing like that has ever happened to me again, but I definitely don't want to see it again. I had been very sick for a while, so I decided to go to the doctor and find out what was wrong with me. I told my wife and she decided to go with me. When we got there, they did all kinds of medical tests to find out what the problem was. After everything was done, I decided to return home. Early in the morning, the doctor who treated me called me and told me to come to his office as soon as possible. This time my wife was at work and there was no one at home, so I decided to go alone. When I got there, the doctor took the results of the tests in his hands and said that I urgently needed a kidney transplant and that I should stay in the hospital until that was settled. I was sent to a room in an area where there were not many people. The nurse decided to introduce me to a patient, Mrs. Miller. Apart from me, she was the only patient in the whole corridor, and it was very likely that she would not leave the hospital because her illness was incurable and she could not speak. It was already night. It was very cold and I could not sleep. I heard the door open slowly and turned to see who it was. It was Mrs. Miller. She looked at me, said nothing and left. Suddenly the lights went out and everything was dark. I heard screams in the hallway, the screams of a person who seemed to be possessed. I tried to call the hospital staff, but since it was such a lonely area, no one could hear me. I heard excited footsteps heading towards my room and I hid under my bed. This thing came into the room and started destroying everything. Suddenly the light came back on and no one was there. The window of the room was open. I guess whatever it was went that way. The nurse came to me and saw the mess. I told her what happened when the power went out. She interrupted me and went to Mrs. Miller's room, but she wasn't there. She alerted all the hospital staff, but no one could find her. They are still looking for her, but no one knows anything about her. I don't know if it took Mrs. Miller or if it really was Mrs. Miller who was possessed.